Hey guys, how are you? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a review of a dark comedy from Australia, English language, released in the year 2013, directed by Stuart Simpson, and this film is called Chocolate Vanilla Strawberry. So Chocolate Vanilla Strawberry takes place with an ice cream man. He drives around in his van, he's selling children ice cream, and he's also getting bullied by a lot of very dark individuals. So there's a pimp who likes to take advantage of the vulnerabilities that Warren has, and Warren is really getting sick of this. So to escape his reality, he starts to fantasize about his favourite soap opera star named Katie George. Katie George stars in his favourite soap opera of all time. He watches every episode just for her. So he starts to get this obsession with her, and he starts to fantasize about a life with Katie George, and he wants to make her his girlfriend. So he's very nervous about this. He starts to talk to her because one day she very strangely comes up to the van, and they start to strike this bond. Now this bond doesn't really go the way that Warren wants it to, and this ultimately leads up to a very shocking and surprising climax, and it's a result of the bullying plus the fact that, you know, he might not get what he wants. So to prevent myself from giving away too much, if you want to know how the movie unfolds, please go out there and see this film for yourself. Now my thoughts on Chocolate Vanilla Strawberry. This movie is a very important film, and I thought that although it does have problems, it was ultimately a very tragic and a very depressing downbeat movie. So it is a dark comedy, but be very careful because by the end of it you won't be feeling like laughing. You feel so strong for this character. He's constantly bullied. You've got these people who deem themselves as better, and they're preying upon all the vulnerabilities that Warren has as a person. And you can connect with Warren. There are relatable qualities that you can have with Warren, and that is ultimately what makes it so depressing, is that this guy is a good guy. He deserves happiness, but he's looking for happiness in all the wrong areas, and you can see why he's been bullied. He can't connect with the outside world, and he's constantly questioning why he can't, and you can see why. But that is ultimately what makes it so tragic, is that you can't help this guy. And that this guy, we all know a similar person in our lives. We all know that guy who doesn't fit in, who we want to help, but is constantly bullied. And you see in the news, sometimes these bullies are pushing these people so far that they commit horrible acts of violence. And that's ultimately what happens in Chocolate Vanilla Strawberry, is that this guy has been pushed to the absolute limits, that he's starting to transform into someone that he wasn't to start with. And it feels like a movie that you're bracing for the impact of a car crash. You don't know when the car's going to crash, but you know when it does, it's going to be very painful. And that's what the terrifying element to the film is that this guy is just going right up to these limits. You don't know what he's capable of, but you're just bracing yourself for the impact. And I thought it was just a very downbeat, depressing film. And it's a movie that took me by surprise because I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. I don't think enjoyment's really the right word, but appreciating the film for what it was trying to do, I can applaud that. It's a low-budget movie. I thought the cinematography was excellent. Thought the acting from the main character was absolutely phenomenal. My only problem with the movie is that the bullies were demonized to the point where it actually felt like a caricature of a bully. It felt like the director was trying to tell you, yes, they are very bad people, but for me it would have been a lot better if these bullies, if their vulnerabilities as people, their insecurities as people, were put up to the front a little bit more, and that they weren't 2D sort of cardboard cutouts. And that's why I felt that it was a caricature. The supporting actors were caricatures. Basically the whole film revolves around this guy, the main character, who's the only realistic character in the film. So you've got this pimp, and he's doing these really, really bad things, and it feels like the aggression towards Warren is a little bit exaggerated to the point where it's trying to make it obvious who the bad guy is and who the good guy is. But it would have been a lot better if the movie was a little bit more subtle in that approach, if the movie had the vulnerabilities of these bullies. You know, you see a lot of bullies, and they're not they're not complete evil. You know, they're doing this for a reason. They're doing it whether they're getting bullied themselves, whether they were, you know, bullied as children, or, you know, whether they're insecure about certain things. You never get that insight into these characters, and it had grounds to make a very interesting sort of film in that it was an exploration of not only the bully victim, but also the bully, so the person who's carrying out the bullying. So that would have been a lot better, but unfortunately the movie just really, it focuses on the victim of the bullying, not so much the bullies themselves. So there are some movies that do delve into the bullies' mentality, and you can kind of get a strange connection with the bullies. But unfortunately in this movie it feels like a caricature. It feels like it's exaggerated to the point where it wants to make it obvious who the good guy is and who the bad guy is. And I think that it would have been better if the actions were the bad ones, and not necessarily the person doing the actions, because there's always a reason behind it, and I thought it would have been a little bit more interesting if those characters were delved into a little bit more than they actually were. Having said that, you know, some of the comedy in there really works. I was laughing at it, but it's the end that really caps it off. I thought it was an absolutely brilliant ending. It's an ending that made me stare at the screen for a long time after the credits rolled, and for that to happen, you know, it took me completely off guard. I wasn't quite you know, prepared for how shocking the ending would be, and then there's a little twist at the end. I wouldn't necessarily call it a twist so much but it does explain what has been happening throughout the film. So there are elements to the movie that don't quite make, you know, don't really make sense. It felt that it was a little bit exaggerated once again, but then once the end happens, you get a strong clarity to the whole film, and the whole film really works for that very reason. So I'm very happy that the director kind of explains himself towards the end, but yeah, it's the last shot of the film that will really take you by storm, and it's ultimately what is a tragic film, and the whole, you know, the ending is just completely tragic, and it just sums up the whole film very, very well. I thought the acting, as I said, from the main character was very good. The bullies, the acting was exaggerated. As I said, the characters were exaggerated and the acting wasn't very good. So there are problems to the movies that didn't quite work, and that was the acting from the supporting cast. But the guy who plays Warren Thompson, I'm not sure of the name. I will write it up so you can see it. He was absolutely fantastic, and it just shows you that there is a lot of talent in the lower budget Australian cinema. So far as low budget cinema is concerned, Chocolate Vanilla Strawberry is an important film, and it is a movie that took me by surprise. So overall, I'm going to give this movie 3.5 stars. Go out there and see it. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.